Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to learn how to make this beautiful keyhole twist neckline dress. Okay, it has three parts that you don't want to miss: the upper part of it, the sleeve, and of course the lower part of it. So if that is what you want to learn how to make step by step for yourself, then keep watching this video till the very end. Firstly, like I said, you're starting with the upper part of it, so you need your basic bodice front, and on the shoulder you're going to be removing 1 inch like I've done now. And so you come down to the depth also, and you're going to be removing 1 inch like so. So you just want to use dotted lines and join these 2 points together. Don't cut it out yet. Just use dotted lines and join them together. And having done that, the next thing you're going to do is to mark 5 inches at this point of your armhole. I used 5 inches. For me, you can use whatever you want, but I used 5 inches. You can see mine is modest. You can wear it to at least so many places. It's not all that revealing. So from that 5 inches, you want to rule a line to this point, and from the very tip of your shoulder, you want to rule on that line to this very point. You see why I said you shouldn't cut it out? Now, just bear in mind that the whole of this part, we are going to be cutting it out. That is where our keyhole is going to be. We're going to be cutting it out. Because we are cutting it out, we need to contour so it does not gap. If you watch closely, you will find that it is fitted very well on me. It is not gapping in any form. So the two contour guidelines we are going to be putting is the neckline contour guideline and of course the shoulder contour guideline. I'm going in now to draw in my shoulder contour guideline. I already drew the neckline contour guideline. Alright, so having drawn in the contour guideline, we are going to be marking the distance between our bust point to our under bust like so to form our bust arc. Now, the dart of this contour guideline is going to be resting on the bust arc, which is 1/2 inch, like so. You want to draw it in like so, and with my ruler I'll go ahead to connect them to form the dart of the contour lines like so. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, do well to subscribe. Click the bell notification icon so you'll be the very first person to know when I post lovely tutorials like this. Share this video to other sewing platforms where you feel they will be needed. Do well to give this video a thumbs up and also comment. Thank you. So at this point, next thing we're going to do is to cut out. Okay, we are going to cut out. Like I said initially, we are cutting this whole place out. So I've gone ahead to detach this upper part of it. All right, this part, the upper part of it. So this is what it looks like. We are going to just label so I don't get confused when I bring it back to work with it. Before I label, I'm going to be reducing that 1 inch we marked. I will reduce it to 1/2 inch. I just eyeballed it. So I'm going to be reducing it to 1/2 inch. Remember the neckline was on the basic, like, I mean, you want to make a shirt. So we are just removing 1/2 inch from shoulder and from the depth. All right, we just remove 1/2 inch. And after removing 1/2 inch, we just discard that part. Then I went ahead to label center front. I also go ahead and label shoulder so I do not get confused when I want to work with it. We'll set it aside. We'll come back to it, but we'll set it aside. Let's work on this part now. To work on this part, the first thing we are going to do is to cut open our waist dart. All right, we are going to cut open our waist dart like so. So I haven't cut open the waist dart now. I'm going to transfer the whole contour dart to the waist dart. Firstly, I'm starting with the neckline contour dart. We're going to be cutting it open. I'll go ahead and tape it down, close the dart, and transfer it to the waist dart. You want to make sure your pattern is laying very flat, smooth, and nice. I'll go ahead to transfer it to the waist dart. Also, the shoulder contour dart, I'll cut it open and I'll also go ahead and transfer it to the waist dart. Remember, your side bust dart is still there. You're going to cut it open and sew it up on your sewing machine. Do not worry, you'll see that as we go on in this tutorial. So I'm going to also tape it down and transfer it to the waist dart, right? Now you want to notice that that line is broken. See this line? It has broken. We are going to redraw it. We'll redraw it and we'll kind of have our guide from that armhole point to this point of the center front of the bodice, right? We're going to redraw it like so, All right, so do not forget about the parts that went inwards. They don't matter. Just focus on that point of the armhole and this point of the center front. And now we've redrawn the line. So I brought back that other part just to kind of do some checkings here. You must not necessarily do this, trust me. Now we're going to be drawing a style line from the point of this bust point to this point of the center front. We're going to be drawing a style line. The reason why we're drawing this line is because we want to transfer all the dart we took to the waist to that point of the style line. Remember your side bust dart is still there. You will cut it open and stitch it up. So I'm going to be cutting this like so to this point. Then wire to close the waist dart, thereby transferring all those darts to this point. I hope you understood what I did now. So having done that, this is what your pattern is looking like at this point, and we are not done. So I brought in a fresh pattern paper and I'm placing this on top of the fresh pattern paper. You want to use a sellotape and take it downwards, lay it flat. Now we're going to be marking 1/2 inch from this very tip, 1/2 inch. And this very tip also 1/2 inch. So I'll be using my ruler to do some joining. I'm joining that 1/2 inch together to form a straight line. Okay, and taking it back to the point where this stuff started, taking it back to the point where the original bodice or the foundational bodice started, and also ruling the line across the foundation bodice where it started. Can you see what I did here? The next thing we're going to do is to cut this whole thing out. Remember, the side bust dart is still there. You will cut it open and sew it up on your fabric to have a perfect fit. At this point, this is what this pattern is looking like. This is what this pattern should look like. We'll move over to this one. You want to rule a line from any point of your shoulder to this very tip of the center front towards the neckline. Can you see what I did now? You're going to use your scissors to cut to and not through the shoulder point. So you want to put this together like so. Of course, before you do that, you will need a fresh pattern paper to lay this flat on. So I got a fresh pattern paper, and before we lay it flat on, we are going to be measuring this part. I got, I think, 3.1 inch or 3 inches, whatever you get from your own, measure it out. Mark it out on a paper like so. Then put this one there like this. Of course, you're going to tape it down. Then also mark that 1/2 inch again. The essence of this 1/2 inch is going to give your neck that, you know, you're twisting this, you're twisting that very portion. So that 1 inch there, it will help for flexibility. You're not going to feel choky. I mean, this dress is so comfortable that I can wear it for anything I want. You're not going to feel choky and all that. And the fabric I use is not even stretchy. So that 1 inch, 1/2 inch from here, 1/2 inch from here, is going to give room for allowance for you to move your neck or move your, for that twist not to choke you up, just so the garment is comfortable. All right. So you're going to be joining these two parts together now with your sellotape. Look, pattern drafting is so interesting. Pattern drafting can do and undo. Trust me. So you see, this whole of this is center front, and we're going to set it aside so we can work on the back. So now for the back, which is actually very simple, I'm taking the measurement of the shoulder for the front. Of course, your shoulder for the front and the back should align. So whatever you get, you're going to be starting from the tip of your armhole to that point. And I marked mine out. So this is what the shoulder of my front is. Then I'm determining the depth of my back neckline. Of course, I used 1/2 inch. You can decide to use whatever it is that works for you. I used 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to be joining it together like so. And I haven't done that, we'll just cut it out. I'm just going to cut it out and then heading to the dart of the back. We're going to cut it out also. Now this is all for the back, right? So let's head straight to cutting that front on the fabric. I'm going to be dealing with the front first so you don't get confused. I don't want it to be too much for you to take in. Can you see I'm cutting the center front like in two pieces. I'm not cutting it on fold, please. There's no way you can even cut it on fold because of the whole stuffs that are irregular, the shape that is irregular. So you're cutting it like this. Can you see that side bust that I marked it out with my chalk because I am going to be sewing it up, right? I marked it out with my chalk because I am going to be sewing it up. So what you're going to do now is you want to sew this part of the front up. You're not sewing the neckline, please. Remember, that's your neckline. You're not sewing it up. Starting from this point, that pointy part, you're going to be sewing it up. So I'm going to head to sew it up, and this is what it looks like. I also stitched up my side bust that. So you also get another one exactly like this. That means you're cutting this 4 times, like 2, 2. All right. So you get one is going to be the lining, one is going to be the inward, the outward part of it, or the main fabric and the lining, but you're using the same fabric for the both of them. Now the thing here is you want to stitch up your neckline, of course, to have a neat finish. Now remember the part of the keyhole that is going to be open, you're going to be stitching it up to have a neat finish up until the point where your armhole started. All right, up until the point where your armhole started, where you joined the sleeve. Look at the picture on top of the screen. Up until that point, I'm done stitching it. I haven't given it a press here. Of course, I'll give it a press later. When you twist it, you're supposed to be having something like this. I haven't ironed it, but I'm going to be ironing it later as we go on. So this is for the back, which is actually pretty simple. We're just going to be stitching up the darts for the back. Can you see that? Now heading over to the skirt pattern. All right, this is my basic skirt front and back together in one piece. Please make sure yours is different. If you're not conversant with pattern drafting, don't put it together like I did. Let yours be different. This is my dart, and my dart nipple to nipple measurement went all the way down to the hem. So this line now is for the back skirt. Can you see? It's for the back skirt, whereas the full one is for the front. So do yours separately so you don't get confused. The first thing we are going to do is to create that A-line effect. All right, so I'm going ahead now to cut my darts out. And then, of course, I'm going ahead to cut up until this point. This is the second part of this tutorial. Like I said, the upper bodice is the first part. The lower bodice, which is the skirt part of it, or the box pleat part of it, is the second part. And the sleeve is going to be the third part. All right, so I did it that way so it's easier for you to understand. We're going to be closing this up and opening this at this point. So I added fresh pattern paper to that point because I think we're going to be also manipulating it, or we're going to be cutting from there. So it's necessary you add fresh pattern paper to this point, and I laid it flat. Of course, I'm going to be cutting out the excesses. This is what this pattern is looking like at this point. Because we need a box pleat, we need somewhere we can fold over. I added fresh pattern paper, and from my foundation pattern center front, I marked 2 inches. 2 inches all the way. You can add more if you want more fullness. You can add 2 inches more. You can add more apart from 2 inches. Remember, all your fullness will be obvious at the hem. So if you want your hem to be so wide, you can decide to add more and more and more. I added just 2 inches. You can decide to add more. So I'm going ahead to bring it down, rule it down all the way down across like so. So using my scissors, I'm going to be cutting out the excess, so we are left with our actual pattern. You guys, the fabric I used for this dress is the threads pull on its own. If you watch closely, you find out that it has already started pulling. I really didn't know it was like that. I don't know. But as well, I think I'll just remake the dress on another fabric. But this fabric I used is so bad. It's pulling. So now the next box pleat we're going to be having is on that dart part, that dart area. So you want to take your ruler, put it on that dart area, and rule a straight line all the way down to the hem. You're going to be ruling a straight line all the way down to the hem. Okay. Then we're going to cut. Like you're going to be cutting it all the way down to separate these two patterns. All right, you're going to separate these two patterns. Of course, when you separate it, you need something in the middle where you can fold over to get a box pleat, and your hem will have fullness. So I added a fresh pattern paper also, and on that fresh pattern paper I added, I'll be marking 3 inches. So I fold one side with 1.5, the other side comes in with 1.5, right? I think I marked 2 inches. Sorry, I used 2 inches. You can use 3. I used 2 inches. One side 1 inch, the other side 1 inch. You can use 3 inches. Like I said, you can use more. The more you apply, or the more fullness you use, is going to be obvious on your hem. Right? That means the hem will be flare, like the flare will be so big on the hem. I hope you get that. So I used 2 inches, and this is what it looks like. I'll go ahead now. So I had to cut this part out, and this is what my skirt pattern looks like. Do not worry, we are going straight to cut it on the fabric. I kind of tried to fold it over, so I'll show you guys. So we're going to be cutting it out on the fabric. I went ahead to cut it out on the fabric, and I marked my notches for where I should fold, where, stuff like that. You have to mark your notches so you don't get confused while sewing. Now I opened it up. Remember, whatever you do to the front is what you're going to do to the back, please. I always lay emphasis on that. Whatever you do to the front is what you're going to do to the back. Of course, I had to use one pattern for the front and back. So this is what you're going to be folding out on your sewing machine. From your notches, where you're going to be sewing inwards, where you're going to be sewing outwards, stuff like that. So now, since we are done with that, I'm going to be joining the front and the back of the upper bodice together. We're going to be joining the front and the back of the upper bodice together. First, from the shoulder you want to join, then you go ahead and shaping it on the sides, okay? Having done that, this is what it looks like. Can you see? This is what it looks like. Don't worry. It's like this when someone puts it on. It's going to come out nice. So for the skirt part, I'm also going to be joining it together, of course, with our measurements at the waist, and then the number of allowances you left all the way down. I'm going to have to join it together. This is what it looks like. And the next thing we are going to do is to join up and down together. You want to join your up and down together, making sure that your side seams, your zipper allowances for the back aligns. Now the third part of this tutorial, which is the sleeve, please, you want to pay keen attention. Okay, there is a part of the armhole where the sleeve is going to be. Look at the picture on top of the screen, and also what I'm showing you now. So the next thing you're going to do is to take the measurement of that part of the armhole for the front. Okay, because some part of the sleeve is just going to rest on your body. There's no armhole. So you want to take that measurement and impute it into your sleeve. And I imputed it. This is where the mark is. Now you know that this sleeve is supposed to be attached, was drafted to be attached onto a dress with an armhole. So since this one is a keyhole, there's no armhole. We want to modify the sleeve. We want to shapen the sleeve. So when I sew it, it's going to be tight on me. Since there is no sleeve, it's just going to be resting on my body. It's going to be tight. It will not gap, like you can see on the screen, the one I'm wearing. So I kind of made a dart of 1 inch, and then I am going to be closing it up. I made a dart of 1 inch around this area. I'm going to be closing it up. So I went ahead to close it up. I've taped it down now. Now the next thing we are going to do now is to add the fresh pattern paper to through that very part of it that looks like it's cut out, so whatever, so we can treat it to rhyme. And at this point we have the perfect sleeve for this dress design. Now the next thing we are going to do is to mark this point at the back. We rule a line all the way down, okay? And for the front also, okay, before the front we're going to make a measurement from that point to the center front, so I know how many inches it is. Whatever you get, you want to go to your back bodice and mark it also, like mark the notch, so that is where your gather is going to rest on. For here I got 4.5 inches for the back, and for the front it is 5.1 inches. I don't know if you get me. It is 5.1 inches for the front. So that 4.1 inch from your back armhole, the center, to 4.5 inches is where you will be gathering. No matter the fullness you're going to leave, that's where you'll be gathering. The rest part of it has to just come out plain. So I'm cutting on that part, and I went ahead to put it on a fresh pattern paper, and I taped it down. I'm also going to be checking the number of allowance or the number of fullness I'm going to give. I'm using 3 inches. So I taped this part down. Also on the center, I'm going ahead to cut like so. Right. Also, I'll be using 3 inches. I marked it. And I went ahead to place this on that 3 inches point. Here also, I'm going ahead to cut. And I'm going to be marking the point, which is 3 inches. And I went ahead to tape it down. So this is what this sleeve looks like at this point, and we are not done. So you see that straight line, you want to make it obvious. In fact, you will need it. That is the part where you're going to be sewing the sleeve so that your round sleeve is fitted on you. First, you can see we have fullness on the round sleeve. So you're going to be sewing up onto that point. So the upper part is puffy and your round sleeve is fitted on you. I added fresh pattern paper to the upper part of it because we are going to be increasing it away from the normal cap height. So I made the center, which is 1/2 inch. I used my ruler to take that center upwards, and I marked, I think, 3 inches all the way up for that extra, puffy fitting or effect. I'm going to be connecting this to this point right now. And we're also going to be connecting that of the other part. You see where I stopped the connection? At the point where the gather is going to stop. Where the gathered effect is going to stop. Every possible notch, front and back, where the gather is started, where the gather stopped, your center. Please mark every notch while cutting it on your fabric so you don't get confused. Of course, we are going to be stitching this up to this point of the line here. Same thing we'll also do here to this point of the line. Same thing we'll also do here to this point of the line. So let's say everything is here. Don't worry, I'll show it on the fabric right now. I'm just trying to let you get a picture of what we are doing. So let's head straight to the fabric of it, okay? So here is the fabric. I'm going to have to stitch it up. Then I ran a loose stitch for gathers all the way round to wherever we want our gather to stop. Like I said, you have to mark a notch. I went ahead to pull it. I'm pulling it right now. Okay, I'm also pulling this part of it right now. So can you see what the sleeve looks like? This is what our sleeve looks like. Can you see that? And here is the outcome. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.